Towards the end of World War I, in 1917, the German military nationalized all the big film companies in the attempt to produce pro-government films that would help them win the war. They were all brought under the umbrella of UFA. As we already know, Germany lost the war, so the military's attempt didn't work out as planned. But while the German economy was demolished, by 1920 their film industry was the only one in the world that could compete with Hollywood, making up to 500 movies a year. Despite the nationalization of most film companies by UFA, some small studios managed to remain independent, such as Decla. The producers at Decla knew they couldn't compete with the scale and resources of UFA, so they had to refer to other means of production. They nevertheless managed to produce one of the first films of German Expressionism, and thus reshaped the style of German films and even influenced the look of Hollywood movies. It was called The Cabinet of Dr. Caligari. The director Robert Wien and his producers used an expressionist form of mise-en-scène, meaning they deliberately distorted the setting to make it look artificial and throw the viewer off balance. The Cabinet of Dr. Caligari was the first product of highly subjective filmmaking, as the viewer sees the story from the perspective of an insane character who, as we find out at the end of the film, made up the whole plot based on people in the insane asylum that he was held in. Other noteworthy directors were Fritz Lang, who was originally an architect, and F.W. Murnau, previously an art historian. Lang's earlier profession shines through his film Metropolis, as it depicts grand spaces combined with German expressionist techniques and special effects. Murnau wanted to make a film of Dracula but didn't have the money to make it, so he created the famous Nosferatu. Later he produced The Last Laugh, which was famous for its unchained camera that never stopped moving in order to make the viewer feel what his characters were feeling. The Dust Bowl of 1924 helped the German economy bloom, but it had a negative effect on the film industry. As exports decreased, studios had a hard time finding foreign distribution, and less banks were willing to give loans to film companies. Thus many had to declare bankruptcy between 1924 and 25. Hollywood, happy that its largest rivals were falling, flooded Germany with Hollywood productions, thus ending Germany's great influence in the film industry. As mentioned before, German cinema also experienced a wave of expressionism sweeping through the country, resulting in dramatic use of heavy patterns of light and shadow, and movies such as The Cabinet of Dr. Caligari, The Last Laugh, Metropolis, M, Nosferatu, From Morn to Midnight, and Al Gore, Tragödie der Macht. Eventually, the public got tired of the over-exaggerated sets, and cinematic expressionism was absorbed into a wide range of genres like social satire and romantic melodramas. By the mid-1920s, a new movement known as Neue Sachlichkeit or New Objectivity followed the remains of expressionism and romanticism and conquered the screen, generating films that focused on the lives of the working class. The term New Objectivity was first used by Gustav Hartlaub in 1923 in the Mannheim Museum to describe the return to objective realism in German painting after Expressionism and Dada. It marked the beginning of capitalist modernization, the appearance of modern consumer culture, and Berlin as the modern metropolis. Despite the increasing mass culture of German cinema, it still managed to encourage experimentation, not only with looks but gender roles, hence bringing out lurking anxieties of the new culture's destabilization of traditional identities such as class, gender, and national identity. Anton Kers, in his book Shell Shock Cinema, Weimar Culture and the Wound of War, argues that German cinema served as a site of national trauma and that it needs to be viewed as a response to the devastating impact of World War I on culture and society. Through this argument, the famous Cabinet of Dr. Caligari is an example of post-war German obsession with war guilt and the difficulty of perceiving reality in the face of war-created illusions, while Nosferatu allegorizes a whole generation's confrontation with death. German cinema of the Weimar period challenged previous traditions of the film industry and pushed boundaries that led to new inventions of style and technique. It reflected the psychology of interwar Germany and produced films that still appeal to the cinematic literate today. Contrasting ideals of extravagant simplicity clashed with visual excessiveness, cultural patterns of the past broke to pieces, and new genres of spy, sci-fi, and horror were born to accommodate the expression of new modern sensations and situations. While producers wanted to create a new, more popular culture in defiance of the cultivated norms of the educated middle classes, they also aspired to bring film to a high art status. A film executive at the time said, "I believe the function of the German film is to give the American film that which it does not possess, and that is soul."